Do you know that that's where a lot of our misery comes from? Is that we have our own ideal and imagination of how things were supposed to go. And when anything contradicts our imagination and ideal, we feel like we have a right to be angry because it didn't meet my rules. Don't you see, God? This is how I was supposed to be married at age 23. And I'm 23 and a half. And Tina got married. And she dresses like, and she's not even that holy. Come on. So he goes out and he sits down. And the Bible says that he made himself a shelter because it was a hot day. Not Charlotte, North Carolina hot. Certainly not Toronto, Canada hot. It was Middle Eastern hot. I'm talking about 110 degrees. And he needed a shade, so he made a booth for himself, a little shelter. He went outside the city. Now that's significant. He went outside the city God sent him to before God released him. No matter what shelter you make for yourself outside of God's assignment for you, it will never sustain. And he sits down and he's mad and he's got a bad attitude. But if we've learned anything about God from the story of Jonah, when God sent the whale to swallow up a man who was in the water because of his own disobedience, it's that God doesn't wait for your attitude to get right before he gives you his attention and takes care of you. And so now Jonah is sitting under the shelter that he made. And God does something interesting. It is the second time that the word manna appears in the book of Jonah. It says in verse 6, chapter 4, the Lord provided a leafy plant and made it grow up over Jonah's head, give his bald head some shade. I like to picture Jonah bald, just dramatizes the story a little bit more. Think about being bald and how hot his head would be, and then the Lord covers his head with this plant, this castor oil plant over his head. He's sitting there, and he likes that plant, boy. He doesn't care very much about people, but he likes plants. And here's where I see that for everything that Jonah has seen God do, he still doesn't get it yet. Because he got outside of the fish, that was a miracle. But he never got outside of himself. The most miserable place in the world to be trapped is not in the belly of a whale. It's inside of yourself. Inside of your selfishness. A lot of believers get delivered from their sin, but they never get delivered from themselves. And so all of life is spent in the shade of you trying to find your own comfort. And oh Lord, thank you for the plant. Isn't this a pretty plant? Yeah, but how about all those people? Oh, people are unpredictable. I like plants. And the Lord said, I knew you liked plants. That's why I provided the plant. But now that I see that you're more focused on the plant than the people, I got to take the plant away. So look at the third thing that God provides. He provides the whale to deliver Jonah, the plant to comfort Jonah, and here comes the worm. Now, if we were writing the story, we would not use the word manna to describe this worm. Because watch what the worm does. The Bible says at dawn the next day, God provided a worm. God provided a worm. I heard about Jonah and the whale, but what about the worm? Can we see the worm? This is that thing in your life that comes along just when you've gotten yourself comfortable. Just when you figured out how life is supposed to be. Just when you got your retirement account right where it's supposed to be. Then you got your little comfortable situation. And Jonah's settling in as a spectator in a situation where God has called him to be a participant. And he's sitting outside the place of his assignment, and he's got a shade over his head. And here comes the worm. And the worm made Jonah furious. Jonah got so mad at God about the worm, because not only did God send a worm, but after God sent a worm to destroy the plant that was shielding Jonah from the sun, then God provided the fourth thing. He provided the whale, he provided the plant, he provided the worm, and then the Bible says in verse 8, he provided the wind. It's a sirocco. It's a kind of wind that beats on you so hard that you have to run for shelter. Now God is making sure that Jonah can't stay outside of the city and find shelter. And at the time, Jonah is furious. Why did you take my plant away? Why did you take my boyfriend away? Why did you take that thing out of my life? What did you make me go through that? Don't tell your story too soon, Jonah, because what you're going to see, if you see it through the lens of a God who loves you, you're going to see that the whale and the worm were working together to serve a purpose in your life. At some point, after Jonah has gone back home, he sits down to tell the story of what happened when God sent him to Nineveh. And by the time he tells the story, he says, you know, at the time I thought it was misery, but it was actually manna. It was all God's provision. And see, I don't know how Jonah finally got this perspective, you know, because the book of Jonah doesn't tell us. When the book of Jonah ends, he's still sitting there with the sun beating down on his head. He's still sitting there trying to figure out what to do. But at some point, he sees it, that the whale that delivered me and even the worm that destroyed the thing that was comforting me, it all came through the hand of God who knows what's best for me. I don't know how he got this perspective. I know he didn't talk to James, because James didn't write his epistle until hundreds of years later. If he would have talked to James, James could have told him about joy. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you face trials of many kinds, when you see worms crawling up and creeping over your head, trying to destroy the comfort of your life. God's not trying to kill you. He's trying to keep you alive, and nothing can grow in your comfort zone. So from time to time, God is going to have to let something come in your life that destroys your comfort so you can fulfill your calling. And now Jonah sees the same God that rescued me with the whale sent the worm to deliver me from myself. But he didn't talk to James. James wasn't around. James could have told him, every good and perfect gift comes from above. Everything that comes into your life can be a gift if you know what to do with it. My friend didn't know that at the time he lost his daughter. Losing his daughter wasn't the gift. The difference that he's making now, telling others they can have hope too. That's the gift. But you won't know that. You won't know the purpose of the worm if you write your story while you're in it. We watched a young lady get baptized in our church today who went through some horrible things. But she's got some wisdom. She found out that the purpose of the worm that took away her shade was to send her back into Nineveh to rescue others who need to be saved. I need somebody who this teaching is resonating with to begin to praise God for His purpose and provision in your life. I know Jonah didn't get a chance to talk to Jesus. You know, I was imagining, what if Jonah could have talked to Jesus? And Jonah is explaining to Jesus, he's like, man, you don't know what it feels like to be me. And Jesus said, oh, really? Try me. And Jonah said, no, man, for me it was easy. You're the Son of God, but for me it wasn't that easy. For you it was easy. For me it wasn't easy. See, I had to go down from my comfort to a place to minister to people that were my enemies. And Jesus said, oh, really? Tell me more. Because I kind of did the same thing when I left the comfort and the prestige and the pristine environment of heaven to be born of a virgin and wrapped in flesh. And I came to my own, and they received me not, and they nailed me to the cross. And from the cross I uttered the words of forgiveness that became the redemption of the world. And Jesus said, what else, Jonah? Jonah said, well, you don't understand. I had to spend 3 days in a dark place. I had to spend 3 days in a place where it looked like there was no hope. And Jesus said, really? Then what happened? And then Jonah said, well, after 3 days I got spit out. And Jesus said, well, I know something about deliverance, coming out of dark places after 3 days. Don't you see it? Jesus is our greater Jonah, our deliverer, and all things work together for the good. The cross and the crown, the whale and the worm. If you never memorize another Bible verse, do Romans 8:28. And read it until your eyes cross over. I mean, read it, and read every word, and then think about that word, think about the next word. For we know that all things are good. Come on, do it, Frank.
We know. Do it again.
Paul's not that naive, and neither is God. You know, there's nothing beautiful about the worm when it's chewing through your plant. That's not what we're saying. That's not my message. My message is that the God of the whale that delivered you is also the God of the worm. The whale, the worm, and the will of God. You know, the whale and the worm were a tag team assigned to Jonah. And when the whale got done dropping Jonah off in Nineveh, he said to the worm, "Take your..." And the echolocation went out, hit the worm. The worm said, "All right, I'm going to be in position." Because we both have one job: to get Jonah back to the place of his assignment. Once his shade was gone, he had no choice but to go back into the place where God wanted him to be. The whale, the worm, and the will of God. And we know that all things, all the whales, all the worms, all the big things, all the little things, all of the blessings, and yes, even the burdens too. All of the things that feel good and all of the things that hurt like hell. God said, I'm going to use all of it. All of it. All of it. All of it. Every dark thing, every destructive thing. All of it. Somebody shout, all of it. All of it. All things work together for the good of them that love the Lord. Does anybody love the Lord in this place? Hey, thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single video or live stream. And share this video with a friend. And don't forget, you can join me live every Sunday. Thanks again for watching.